Yeah, man, I haven't seen any.
Good morning and welcome to this conversation on the 100 million artist allocation, and we are talking about what is the impact of the stimulus package to the artists in this country. And this morning it's brought to you by PAWA254 in partnership with ActionAid, and this is a project that talks about what are their economic opportunities for young people. But as much as we are talking about what economic opportunities are there for young people to engage in, this year, of course, we have the COVID-19 pandemic, and we sort of restructured the activities of the program to be able to live within the realities that we have as a country and also as a world. This year we have sort of restructured the ways we are engaging young people, and we sort of looked at what are the existing ways in which we can engage young people, but also look at what are the programs that the government has so that we can be able to ensure that young people actually benefit from this program. And one of the program is the 100 million artist allocation that the president gave a direction for the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage to be able to give this stimulus package to the artist. And this morning we would like to figure out how many artists have actually benefited from the program, and then from there we can be able to learn what are the challenges that exist and what are the lessons that we can be able to draw from this conversation. And I'm joined this morning by my very able panel, Dr. O'Donnell Otoyo from the Permanent Presidential Music Commission, my apologies. And then I'm also joined by John Yalo from the Kenya Film Commission, and we'll be able to figure out what has been the impact of the 100 million artist allocation. And I'll first of all go to Dr. Donald Otoyo. Maybe you can introduce yourself, maybe tell us where you come from, what you do in that organization.
Thank you. My name, as you've heard, is Donald Otoyo. I'm the current director at the Permanent Presidential Music Commission. I joined the institution a couple of years ago, about 3-4 years ago, coming from the industry and also coming from academia. So my background is in music, and that's what I've been practicing. That's the only thing I know how to do best. So, and after spending a career training and building musicians, I thought it would be a good time for me to come to government and see what we could do in terms of policy development. So the Presidential Music Commission is mandated to provide guidelines and coordinate the music industry. We're also in charge of the preservation, conservation of our musical heritage. We do youth talent development programs where we try and build skills and uplift musicians with various talents across. We're also in charge of doing entertainment for all state events and presidential events and national days. And then we also offer consultancy to government and beyond on matters to do with music. So you find that we do play a role in issues to do with curriculum development in this country, matters to do with music education. So we participate very strongly, partner a lot with other government agencies, Ministry of Education, and various ministries in government to build matters to do with music.
Okay, great introduction. And of course, I'll follow up with the questions with some of the things that you've raised. But for this time, I would like to give this opportunity to John Yalo to tell us about himself.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, viewers. My name is John Chalo, not Yalo. My name is John Chalo. I'm with the Kenya Film Commission. At the Commission, I am at the Local Content Research and Capacity Development Department, where we basically deal with all local content, production of local content, and training filmmakers in the industry. That's what we call capacity building. Trying to train them to gain skills to be able to produce their content, both locally and internationally. So what we do at the Commission basically is to develop and promote the film industry, local film industry. And we also market Kenya as a filming destination for international filmmakers. So that is widely our mandate. Is trying to create a vibrant film industry in Kenya. Yeah.
Okay, great. As you've heard, it's a very able panel, and I would like to first of all throw a question to you, Dr. Otoyo. When we talk about 100 million artist allocation, first of all, most Kenyans are wondering why 100 million. Where did it come from? What was the structure? What was the president and his advisors thinking about allocating this economic stimulus to the artist?
Well, I think. To highlight, first of all, the current government is very concerned with the creative sector, and the president has been on the front leading about the creative sector. So there's been a lot of effort to try and streamline the sector. So it's interesting because majority of us only talked about the 100 million, but people have not been realizing the great strides the government has been making towards strengthening the creative sector. If you noticed that last year, before the 100 million, there's the process of the Copyright Act, the amendment. It's a process that had been ongoing for years, and finally, with the help of the leadership, we were able to bring that into action. And His Excellency, the President, did pass the Corporate Amendment Bill 2019 last year. And that Corporate Amendment Bill has very great repercussions to the industry in terms of it answers to some of the issues people have been raising. People have been wondering why the government has not been putting a bigger stride towards the CMO regulations, all right? And it's because of the law that was there before. Now with this new corporate law, the government has a bigger and a stronger arm in terms of guiding on how the collections can be done, the distributions can also be done. So that's why you've noticed even before he gave the 100 stimulus program, he's been talking about those reforms, all right, across government.
Yes.
And then when we got we got into this current situation of COVID, the discussions started, and I think our ministry was among the first ministries to respond to the COVID pandemic by calling on to people to adhere to the Ministry of Health guidelines. So we started off by calling on to artists and creatives to come out and to talk to their fans and followers to keep safe and stay safe as we watch out to see what this pandemic was all about, because it was a strange thing for everyone. Yes. And the ministry took leadership in that through the creative sector. We also took leadership with that through the music industry and also through the sports. And I'm sure you can remember that the sportsmen came out, the musicians came out, and they were making calls to Kenyans to listen, yes, and so that we can all be safe. And I think with that dialogue continued. At the commission, we produced songs. We talked to artists who are at home and who are willing to come together on a project we called Creatives for Kenya. And we talked to the artists who are willing to join in the project. Of course, it was on a voluntary basis. Yes. It was not monetary based. And we said, let's do this for Kenya. Yeah. And we did a couple of songs that went out to the public. And I think that encouraged many other artists. And many Kenyans have written songs about COVID, and they followed in the same. And I think it's in the same stride that the government are discussing and seeing, how do we come in? If these creatives are coming out to support Kenyans, how do we as government also come in to support them so they can continue doing what they normally do? We were hardest hit as an industry in terms of the closure of all entertainment sports, the closure of all means of income that yes. comes to the industry. So I think it was a response to government that we look into this, and His Excellency saw it wise that we start with this package. I do not think this is the end of the process. I think this is just the beginning of the process. And we sat as a ministry under the leadership of the Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, and the discussions were on how do we come in to support the industry. So it was a process. It wasn't just something that dropped from it was good manna from heaven, but it was a process, yeah. Okay. So the process led us to when the allocation was done, and the directives were very clear. The money was not only to go to musicians, as initially most people thought. The money was to go to the creative sector, yes, and support the creative sector. So there was a lot of misunderstanding again from the statement of His Excellency made, but the statement was quite clear. So the process began, and I think it's part of the discussion we're going to have this morning, and we're going to try our best to elaborate to Kenyans on how this process was activated and how it was executed.
Okay,
yes.
Great to hear. I'll come back to you, and of course you talk about manna from heaven,
yes,
or manna from the national government. I'll follow up with that question. But for you, you told me you're Chalo.
Yes.
Yes. So I'll be very deliberate to mention that. When you heard about, I don't know, at what point was the Film Commission engaged in this whole conversation? Because at least Dr. Otoyo has talked about, you know, him engaging the creative arts even just before the 100 million came in, and already was supporting or sort of coordinating the sector in their own section for music. I would like to find out at what point did the 100 million allocation find you as a commission, and what were you doing about it to be able to create awareness around COVID, but also not just creating awareness, because artists as well, and of course Dr. Otoyo has mentioned that artists were really affected by the situation because there are no places to perform and everything, but also our country struggles in terms of infusing art in the national development. That is for sure. I would like to find out, what were you already doing with artists in the film sector to be able to, even when the 100 million is coming, it's more of advancing the work that they are doing? This COVID pandemic found everyone by surprise. And it hit us in March when the year just started and people were planning big things for the year. And when it came, so many projects for filmmakers were cancelled. And you know, the film industry is the entertainment industry. And when the pandemic came, it became very hard for filmmakers, film producers to invest and to continue with their projects. So many jobs were lost at that point, where, because the way the film industry works is, it works on a project-to-project basis. So when the pandemic came and people canceled their projects, then all these filmmakers who work on freelancer basis, who are always waiting for the next job to come, were unable to work. So all these guys were at home. And for us as a film commission, it's a cause for worry. Because you're thinking your stakeholders have nothing to do. They can't put food on their table. So that's where we started. And we started thinking, what is the best way to have filmmakers put food on their table? One of the things that we did is to develop guidelines that for the return to work. It's kind of return to work formula for filmmakers. How are they going to do their job, even within even when the pandemic is going on? So we developed guidelines that telling people, yes, you can continue shooting, but you can't be more than this. And it was published for filmmakers to resume their works. That is one. Two, you will understand that the commission runs several programs. And one of the programs is a My Kenya, My Story mobile phone film competition. And this year's, when COVID hit, these years we thought it wise to tailor the theme into COVID-19. Because we wanted filmmakers to make films using their mobile phones and preach this message of staying at home and social distancing. In fact, that was the theme. Because we wanted these young people to make content that they're going to compete. And the content is all over our YouTube page. Yeah. Because we want people to, it's like what Dr. was saying about with music. They're creating music that speaks into the pandemic. Yes. So we also encourage people to create films that speaks into the pandemic, encouraging people to stay at home, wash hands, and social distancing. So that is what we did after, of course, developing the guidelines for return to work. And then the 100 million was announced, and we were so happy because we knew now filmmakers are artists, and there's no way you're going to separate them.
So we knew when the president talks about the 100 million, he talks about us, the artists, our actors, our film producers. So we were happy and we knew we will have a stake into that 100 million so that we administer it. Of course, there are several other programs. Towards the July, August, we had the Film Empowerment Fund, where we disbursed funds or grants to filmmakers to produce content. And we distributed a total of 25 million to filmmakers. And this is a different project from the 100 million stimulus. And the spirit is to encourage filmmakers to create content and to employ as many people as possible, especially during this time when many projects had been cancelled. Yes.
It's very interesting that you've talked about Film Empowerment Fund,
Yes.
that had a basket of 25 million.
Yes.
And one of the things that I have interacted with filmmakers, and one of the things that they say is that Kenya Film Commission has licenses that they have to take. And I mean, they have to pay for licenses.
Yes.
And one of the questions that most artists have been asking themselves, the commission collects all these licenses, and it doesn't have a way of sort of giving back to the artist. So it's very interesting to hear that there was already a film, the Film Empowerment Fund. And how long has it been there, and how many people have benefited from it?
Just to clarify, the commission doesn't collect licenses from filmmakers. Licensing is done by Kenya Film Classification Board. At the commission, our job is to develop the industry, is to promote the industry. We don't charge filmmakers money to register with us. And any license that is gotten from the Kenya Film Classification Board. That's where they get their licenses from. From our mandate is purely promotional. So we don't charge them. And this fund was in the spirit of economically empowering filmmakers. To be able to create content, you need money. And there's a lot of money that is needed for you to be able to create content. So we are alive to the fact that funding in filmmaking in Kenya has been a problem. And if you talk to any filmmaker today, they will tell you, I don't have money to create content. I can't create content because I don't have finances. So we saw the need, especially when COVID hit and realized there is filmmakers are not getting money from anywhere and all this. Of course, this is not a one-off. After COVID, this program will go on. But it was one of the things that we were looking at. Filmmakers need money to create content. And when you inject any money, whether small or big, it's going to bring so many people into that project. And going on with the discussion, I will be able to share with you the numbers in terms of how many people are employed in a project and all these people. Because when you inject like 1 million in a project, you know very well that several number of people are going to be employed in that project for almost a month or so.
Okay.
So yes. For us, the Film Empowerment Fund or program, plus any other program, including stimulus, is very critical to the industry because it ensures that there is injection of finances into the industry. The finance that the industry really needs for it to develop.
Okay, I'll come to you, back to you to the question on where you said you're purely promotional. I think the commission should be able to do more. So I'll definitely come to you on that question.
Yes.
And maybe just to you, Dr. Otoyo. You've of course, you talked about the Creative Arts Kenya that you were already engaging, and that's how then, when the 100 million then came in, you were able to sort of very infuse smoothly. I would like to find out what was your criteria, because already you are working with some artists before the 100 million came in who are working on voluntary. What was your criteria now when the 100 million then came in? What was your criteria of selecting the artists? Because then we are talking about what is the representation in terms of the country, and I would like to find out about that.
So maybe the best way to answer your question would be perhaps maybe just give you some insights onto the process that we undertook.
Yes.
So when we got the 100 million given to the creatives, the ministry sat and decided and worked through the plan where we the funds, for example, for the visual artists were disbursed through the National Museums of Kenya. We had the film makers funds disbursed through the Kenya Film Commission.
Yes.
We had the funds for the actors, comedians, etc. Their funds were done through the Department of Culture and the Kenya Cultural Center.
Yes.
So the agencies came in together because it was easier to segregate that way, to be able to reach out to as many of the sectors within the creative sector as possible.
Yes.
And the process then began. So on my side, I was working with the musicians. The approach that the ministry and the government took was, first of all, creatives are people who we, as a ministry, are trying to push for their positioning in terms of their contribution to the economic development of this country. And they are not people who will be sitting by the roadside waiting for handouts. So we created the work for pay. And the whole idea of creating work for pay was to promote the creatives to do what they always do. So you see, when the government injects maybe to support the coffee sector, that money goes to support the farmers to do what they normally do in the area of coffee farming, right? And maybe the industries around it as well to grow. So this idea for the stimulus coming to the music industry, it was coming to help the musicians to do what they normally do given the current circumstances.
Yes.
So the assumption that some people in the sectors had that it was going to be free money disbursed to the M-Pesa numbers, that was, it wasn't going to be that way. It was an issue of stimulating them to continue to do what they normally do. So we came up with a concept of asking them to create content around the same area, and content that we will support them in one way or another in terms of producing it, and content that will remain their content. They'll own the copyright to that content. They'll continue to earn from that content for their lifetime, all right? So basically it's making you release a new song in a time when it would have been so difficult for you to release a new song, making you release a new play at a time when it was difficult to release a play, making you release a film at a time when it was so difficult to release a film. Basically, that's how, in a nutshell, if I may put it in a layman's language, that is how the program was. And that's why it was themed work for pay. So the work for pay, then we reached out to the creatives.
Yes.
The first one was to ask them to submit their works. And then their works would have been put through a panel that was going to look through the works and then and support the creatives in the way the panel would propose. So there was definitely a criteria on how the works were being looked at, and then after the assessment, then the funds were allocated to the works. But then we realized not everybody was able to produce works from where they were and be able to submit them. So we got a lot of feedback from the ground, and people are saying, yes, I'm ready to participate in the program, but I'm not able. One, I do not, my equipment were locked up in the venue where we used to perform. I can't access that venue, I can't access that equipment, so I can't record. All right. So we got all this feedback from the ground, and then after the submissions stage 1, as much as we did continue extending the deadline, and I think we extended it about 3 times, there was not enough engagement with the industry.
Yes.
So then we had the roadmap program, which worked for the musicians, the actors and comedians. So we got a production team that went to the ground and went to various towns. But by the time we were going to the towns, we had received requests, a lot of them so we already knew we were going to Nakuru. We have 400 requests from Nakuru and the environment. So anyone within the scope of Nakuru who had requested, we'll ask them to come to Nakuru, where we were able to produce their works for free. So we recorded, we produced the works for free, and they were also able to, they were paid for the work they did on the ground. And so we did that countrywide. So we went to very major towns where we got the neighboring towns and counties to participate. And those towns were being selected also according to the requests that were coming from from the ground. So it wasn't just waking up and say, today we're going to go to Thika. No, it was based on the statistics that we're receiving from the ground.
Yes.
So that gave opportunity to people from Mashinani to also participate in the program.
Okay.
So in total for the musicians, we were able to work with 3,086 musicians countrywide. And the ones we worked on the ground were more than the ones who submitted their works. All right. We have a report on the same with the statistics of every county. We were actually able to engage the county governments where we went to the ground, and we sought their support further to the groups that we were working with. So some counties created other initiatives that continued to work with the creatives we left on the ground. And like for example, Nakuru County, they continued with their stimulus program, and they took it to their sub-counties, and were able to work with even many more musicians from that area, and many other counties that took up the challenges. So we were not just also going to the county, working with the musicians, we were engaging the county governments as well to sensitize them on the need for them to support the creatives. We spoke to their leaderships, we engaged them in the process. We also worked with the local leadership in the areas we were going, and also so that we could sensitize as many creatives as possible to participate in the program. Even way after the program closed, we continued to receive many submissions. And this is a dialogue that's still ongoing in government on how do we continue to support this sector? How do we continue to support those who are not probably able, for one reason or another, to meet the team on the ground and to submit on time? Because a few of the creatives, to be honest with you, doubted the process at the beginning. So they did not come out in good numbers to participate. When they heard the real stories from the ground, that their fellow musicians were being paid, actually money was going down to them, that encouraged them to participate. But most of them participated or submitted when we had already exhausted the dockets that we had been given. And we did share the same report to our bosses, and this conversation still going on around the same. So I think there's also a notion that the 100 million stimulus project came, it ended, and then the government support to the sector is gone. No, conversations are ongoing.
Yes.
And there are so many things that government is doing in so many other ways. For example, we run, I mentioned about state events, all right? The government is so keen on supporting the creative sector, such that in every state event, in every presidential event, we are working with artists in one way or another. Yes. And these artists are being paid. And to be honest, they are being paid well for the work they are doing.
Yes.
And we were actually doing some of the statistics that if you look, for example, on a national day away from COVID,
yes.
All right, my commission works with almost over 1,000 musicians in one national day.
Yes.
So that's economic impact to about 1,000 people in one event. So if you put together the three events that we have, the 3 national days that we have,
yes.
already we have a higher number that we work with countrywide than we did with the stimulus project.
Okay.
We pump in a lot more money to the sector than we did from the stimulus project.
Okay.
So if I may give you an example where perhaps sometimes government will pump in 15 million to 20 million to the creative sector over such programs, all right? And if you put that together, it will come close to the same 100 million. So there are so many things that government is doing in so many ways that's supporting the sector, supporting so many of these musicians, and perhaps maybe what the encouragement now we need to tell the industry and the musicians who are benefiting from these projects is also for them to come out and probably share their stories and share their experiences because they are many. When we take a national celebration, for example, to a county like Nakuru or Mombasa, that is a blessing to the creative sector from that area. A lot of people, a number of people benefit. Yes. So if you say we are in Kisii and maybe 600 of those performers are from that area, so we'll have stimulated quite a number of people.
Yes.
Yeah, from the program. So the program had its experiences, of course. It had its challenges.
Before you go to experiences and challenges, Dr. Otoyo, you've raised quite pertinent issues, and I would like us to decipher first before you go to the challenges. And then I'll come back to you, Chalo. You've talked about, first of all, in your first statement, you talked about manner. And then you talked about, in your letter of conversation, you said it was not free money, as what Kenyans thought. And my question is, we are in a situation where, and of course you've talked about some artists were not able to access the equipment. And for various reasons, maybe they had not paid rent for that, so they cannot access their premises and all that. My question is, when we have an economic stimulus package, and then you're already asking artists to be able to go back into their pockets and then submit a sample of their work, is that not being, injustice to them, because they are looking for a way of living, first of all, before you actually now go and produce some kind of work. So maybe just would like to find out why the confusion of manner and free money, and then, and how am I supposed to produce content while I also don't have something to eat in the first place?
Okay, so let me take you back. There are issues of the industry that all of us in the industry understand. Yes. One of the biggest problems we have in this industry is a database issue, all right? Yes. The other issue we have in this industry is the issue of being clear who an artist is, who a musician is, all right? We've been in the industry for many years. I am clocking over 25 years in the industry, all right? And the experiences we have, we know. We know even where the issues that are biting us are. So we are not dealing with the issues from an ignorant perspective or a lack of information perspective. So the work for pay was critical. And the issue was we were not pushing artists to go to the studio and produce we're not telling them to go produce the world-class video, for example, of a recording. No. We wanted to see their talent. We wanted to be sure that this person you're going to engage is that person. So the video and the submission were very critical. We were not going to pay someone who sent a recording, because even in the same process, we had copyright issues. All right? We had people sending other people's songs and saying it's their work. All right? So these are issues that bite us, that you cannot just now wake up from a blanket and say, I'm going to pay Mbuki because she's a musician. All right? So I might know you, but there are musicians, machinani, that I may not know. There are people who left school maybe the year before who have joined the industry. We may not know. So we created a criteria. And one of the criteria was, of course, you must be above 18. You must have been in the industry for a year or two for us to support you, because we are supporting people who are depending on the industry. We know there are some artists probably who are just beginning, but they are under the cushion of their families or their guardians, all right? So they are not necessarily paying rent from the works that they are doing, all right? So we're saying you at least be in the industry for a year or two. We had to establish that you've been in the industry for a year or two for us to be able to work with you. So also above 18 was for us to be able to deal with people who are really depending on their livelihood from the creative sector. So the criteria was actually categorically meant to help the industry and remove people who may not qualify. We had instances, for example, where an artist submits a video, all right? And in the video, the one person is singing. But in the video, they've recorded 6 people in the video. The other 6 is the grandmother, the grandfather, so we were able to work out and say, this person is an artist, but these others are not. We were able to engage them. We were able to call them and pick the stories from them. They said, okay, I was not able to get you. We asked them to also work in groups. That was the other thing, so that we do not spend a lot of the money on production for both sound and video. So for the audio production, we're saying, get together 6 artists or more and come up with a production, send this to us. Whether you record it on phone, whether you record it on, it wasn't the issue. The issue was for us to establish, are those 6 people in that recording artists? Are those musicians? And we are also very skilled personnel at the commission. So we're able to tell. And even if you put a video to the wrong, to a soundtrack that is different from the person who's singing, we're able to pick it out. All right? So we were able to narrow down and also get back to this person and say, it's good you've tried, but we don't believe this is your voice. All right? So now that we are on phone with you, can you sing for me the opening melody of the song that you submitted? And you find the person cannot sing.
Okay.
All right? So we did this to be able to reach to the real musicians. And it worked well for that part. We were able to. Those we found that were aspiring, we also did not lock them out. We said, we'll put you in our pool. All right? The next time we shall have a talent development program, we shall reach out for you to see whether you'll be free to participate in the programs. Because most of our talent development programs are free. All right? We audition, and then the government takes the cost of the training. And so we were able to deal with all those issues we were not punishing the musician.
Yes.
We were helping the musician by trying to sieve out the non-musicians from the musicians.
Yes.
And where we found people with very great ideas of the content they send us, some of them were even able to push them for future productions. So beyond the stimulus, we've been able to produce quite a number of musicians from the program. So you send content that was not content that can go on air, that can probably be used to earn you royalties and make you money. We come back to you, remind you of that content, and tell you now, let's pick that content that you guys had, let's work it out and see how we can produce. So we've been able to sponsor a number of artists to record. We have a recording studio at PPMC, which we provide for free, especially for upcoming artists and people who are trying to enter into the industry. We have an auditioning process that they go through, and we feel like your product is not yet ready for the market. We'll put you through, we have rehearsal rooms, facilities that also give for free. So we put you into our rehearsal rooms. So it's like an incubation process. We incubate you, we let you develop that idea and concept that you have until it's mature, then we take you to the studio. We record you. And more often than not, we also partner with a lot of producers. There are so many people in the industry, well-wishers in the industry, producers, videographers, who come. And we partner and we pick up these artists. And we ask them, can you work with this one? All right? Work with them in this journey, mentor them, and where there's a problem, come back to us. We see how we can resolve it. So there's been a lot more that has happened beyond that. And some beautiful success stories that have happened beyond that.
Okay.
Why
Before you
manna?
go to your success stories.
And maybe just let me finish the issue of manna.
Okay.
Remember, even when manna was dropping from heaven, people had to go out to collect the manna.
Yes. But they were just collecting. This is, you have to do all the work and then submit. We'll come back to that conversation, Dr. Otoyo, and thanks for bringing some of the issues that I'll follow up on. Mr. Chalo, you talked about, and you corrected me with KFCB and KFC.
Yes.
There's a reason why I put that, I threw in that. Because I know the commission, as much as you do a lot of work on promotional, I believe one of the role that you have is policy. And I was just wondering, are you working with KFCB to ensure that, you know, these filmmakers are also being supported? Because yes, you have this fund, 25 million, but the number of licenses, like the amount of licenses that goes to KFCB, for example, it's huge money. How does that money then come back to build the industry? And the other question that I would ask you is around the 100 million conversation. Film is very costly by itself. I would like to figure out what was, when you're disseminating the portion of the 100 million that you got. First of all, maybe you can tell us how much of the portion you got, and how much probably maybe a team of filmmakers were getting, because I know filmmaking is quite expensive, and considering, you know, the licenses and everything, it's very expensive. So I'd like to figure out, you know, how was it, and how many films were produced in the process.
Yeah, let me start with how we work together with Kenya Film Classification Board,
yes,
and for the benefit of the industry. You will understand that ours is not purely, well, I use the word purely, but ours, we do promotional for the film industry and developing it. We are also facilitating, in the sense that we facilitate filmmakers to create content. And this is through liaison services, where we help filmmakers to get different to different government institutions where they want to use them. we also do a lot of training for filmmakers. And you'll notice that until you have skilled personnel, you can't create much. So we focus our energies on trying to capacity build filmmakers through various things, including workshops that we do across counties. Like last week we had one in Mathare, just in Nairobi. Next week we have one in Kisumu that is coming up. And in every training we are training over 70 filmmakers. And these are budding filmmakers. We are also establishing film hubs across different counties. And in these film hubs you'll find filming equipment. You'll find cameras, you'll find lights, you'll find editing suits. And this is a free facility for filmmakers in the different areas. Coming back to the 100 million.
Yes.
100 million is a big figure. But the film industry got 8.5 million from the 100 million. So the commission sat down with the money that came to us and asked ourselves, how do we have this money reach as many young filmmakers as possible? So the team at the commission, the technical team at the commission, plus other industry professionals, you'll realize that the industry works with the commission works with the industry.
Yes.
Whenever we have any project, we involve the industry to make decisions for themselves. So when we got this money, we put together a team from the industry. And these are representatives from the film associations in the country. So we had a team of people as representatives from the film associations. And we had a team from Kenya Film Commission, where that team was charged with developing the criteria for how do we receive this content and what kind of content are we receiving, or what kind of projects do we want to give money to. So that is one. So what we did, when the team was already put in place, we put out a call for filmmakers to apply. And we are not asking them to submit their already produced content. We are telling them to produce their project plans. What is it that you want to do? What is your budget? And of course, because it's 8.5 million and we have to benefit as many people as possible, the money we were disbursing to the different projects was not a lot. But the idea was not to create very professional films with the 8.5. Our idea is to have the industry doing something, engaging the industry to create content that can be consumed, even on social media, even on YouTube, all these channels. So we put out the call. We got 98 applications. Of course, this was after the extension that came. Like Dr. said, there was hesitation from the industry. They were not sure that this money is coming. I mean, government is giving money. So they were not sure that this money is coming in. So we didn't get as many applications as we had anticipated. But after extension, we got 98 of them. And I know this, we will speak about this during the challenges, because one of the problems we faced is not all the 98 projects had submitted what we had asked for in terms of paperwork. I mean, we are asking you submit this. The guys don't care. They just submit content. They just submit a one-page write-up. They are not following the guidelines that we give. And this is how our artists are. I don't know, and this is why we are doing a lot of capacity building for the filmmakers, because they need to understand how government works, processes, what is required, so that when I tell you to submit a duly filled form, kindly attach your tax returns, for example, your compliance certificate. Everyone pays tax in this country. If I tell you attach this, if I tell you attach, for example, I'm not saying that is what we asked, but if I tell you attach a copy of your ID and you don't attach, I mean, I don't know who I'm dealing with. And like I said, it's very hard. We are trying to work on a database of filmmakers, but we really can't tell who qualifies to be a filmmaker, who is a filmmaker. We are trying to create that database now, and I will be able to speak about it at the end. But we need, when we ask people to to submit their content, their application, they need to follow guidelines. So we got 98 of them, but only 62 had the requisite documentation that we were looking for.
Yes.
Out of the 62, the 62 project plans were taken through a technical evaluation by the technical team from Kenya Film Commission and the industry representatives. Out of the 62, we got 33. So 33 projects were given money. And the finances were ranging from 200,000, 400,000, 300,000, depending on that. And like we were saying, we were not asking them to submit already produced content. So you tell us, this is what I want to do, this is my budget. We tell you, yeah, you asked for this budget, but we can't give you this, we'll give you this. In this money that we're giving you, kindly go and produce and then bring to us progress reports. So far, so we dispersed the first 60% of the money to the filmmakers. And it was a requirement that you have to employ over 20 people in your project. Almost 20 people in your project. And this is something they complied with. You know, filmmaking is a collaborative effort. You can't do your film alone. You have to have a crew, you have to have cast, you have to have... So the idea of this money is to reach as many people as possible. So the 33 projects that we gave money to employed over 600 people. In fact, the total number is 661 filmmakers who were directly employed into these projects. These are crew and cast. Of course, there are these other people who are indirectly employed, including drivers who are taking them around, people providing food, because the 661 are main crew. This is camera persons, producers, and all these sound recordists, all these technical people, then the actors. Then there are these other people who are engaged indirectly and benefit from these funds of the 100 million.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Before I just go on with Daktari, I would like to mention that we were supposed to be joined by Daktari Zalendo Kibuja, who was not able to join us this morning. He unfortunately was not able, he's unwell, and also his colleague is unwell, and therefore they could not be able to represent the National Museums of Kenya. And of course you've heard in the discussion, there were 3 sections that were given this, or were supposed to receive the funding from the 100 million. And the National Museums of Kenya was one of them. And unfortunately, we were not able to join, they were not able to join us in this discussion. And it was very critical for us to have, you know, their artists in that section, you know, in the museum, in the pottery and all. But then we didn't manage to have a discussion with them. But hopefully we'll be able to reach out and be able to sort of see how many artists sort of benefited from that section. And then we sort of share that with you. Before we, just back to you, Daktari Otoyo, you talked about you've been in the industry 25 years. You understand the issues.
Yes.
And you know where the issues are. And now you're a director of PPMC. I'm just wondering, with experience, with understanding of the issues, and the artist sector, or rather the creative sector, is really struggling in this country. You find that even as much as we're talking about the 100 million, whatever that went to each and every section, and in fact, if you look at the 6 sections that were given, there are so many other sections that were left out. You know, we have creatives in, for example, storytellers, we have writers. All these people didn't benefit from this 100 million. They were very specific on comedians, musicians, filmmakers, dancers. Some sections were not covered for sure. Even from this 100 billion package and as a director, what are those things that we need to do as a sector to be able to improve and just be able to sort of bring the sector together so that we can be able to have an index? Because one of the things that governments look at is what is this sector contributing to the economy so that we can invest more and then it brings back. And even as you're answering that question, my question is, I was just listening to a song that was produced during the Corona period. And one of the things that it's saying since 2004, they have not received their loyalty, or what you call, the loyalties. They haven't received from MCSK. The other issue that they brought out is they received 2,500 shillings from the 100 billion package. And they're saying this 2,500 shillings cannot even pay my own rent, for example. I would like you to sort of shed more light on that. And maybe one last question is that one of the issues that the song is talking about is that, and just going back to your comment on how you support these artists. For example, when you have events, for example, national events, you sort of support artists. And of course, you talked about, for example, in national events, you engage over 1,000 artists, for example. And how do you just go beyond national events? Because the song was actually raising very pertinent questions. They are saying, these are people who have been in government, but when they go to their campaigns, they actually don't use local musicians in their own. So you'll find that someone has used Lucky Dube's songs, someone who is, died a long time ago. While there's already an artist who is trying to build themselves in Kenya, why don't those leaders in this country able to use the local content to be able to drive their agenda or even to campaign? Yeah. To you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Maybe I can start with the first question of the issue of royalties.
Yes.
Like I mentioned earlier on, it's been a process. It's been a struggle. Under the previous copyright laws and under international conventions, like the Berne Convention, the copyright is a private entity, and they are the laws that govern it in that process. So you find that the CMOs that were collecting and that still collecting, they are registered as private companies. All right? Under the previous law, there was very little that government could do to go into those institutions to streamline the issues of collection and distribution. The only thing that government was mostly doing was the issue of licensing. All right? But with the new amendment bill, the Copyright Amendment Bill 2019, and that's why I was saying this is something that the Kenyans should be celebrating more about. The musicians, the creative sector should be celebrating more. And it's not the end. It doesn't answer all our questions, and it's something about law that we'll have to keep on looking at how to amend it, because also the emerging technologies they keep changing the issues. But the issue of the royalty collection and distribution is something that the government is taking very seriously across government. All right? And with the new copyright amendment law, you've seen government now moving a lot more firmer to deal with the CMOs. We are now actually, we force them to align, and when they fail to align, we conducted a forensic audit, all right? And the forensic audit revealed quite a number of things that, of course, as a way that government works, the way law works, I cannot take you to court on hearsay. All right, we can only work with evidence.
What are some of those issues that came out from the forensic audit?
They are mostly structural, mostly systematic issues, that systems are not in place that would streamline the operations, that will reduce the cost of collection, so that we can maximize on distribution. You would find in the past CMOs were collecting, they'll probably spend 80% of what they're collecting on their administration and distribute 20%. All right, we've come in and we've put that the minimum they must distribute is 70, and the maximum they must use in terms of their operating cost is 30. All right, these are things now we are able to enforce with the new bill which has been in place for a couple of months. All right, where we feel like there has been a breach of law, we've forwarded the issues to the DCI and DPP to look into. So there's action going. We may not be on the streets blowing trumpets about it, but there's action going. We streamline that. But we're also not looking at punitive measures only. We're also looking at corrective measures of putting systems in place, helping the CMOs have structures that will ensure that we reduce cost. We've gone into a use of technology to reduce cost of collection, so that now we have a system that will be able to help us collect more, help us manage the issues more. So with the support from the Ministry of ICT, we've been able to put in a system in place that's right now being checked through the Kenya Copyright Board. So there are very major steps that government is taking to rectify the issue, now that the law gives it let's say gives it the space to be able to do that. So there's a lot of reform agenda that's ongoing, and with time we'll see some of those feedback. But today, as government, we are able to monitor the collection. And the next step is now today is for us to monitor the distribution. Yes. It's also for us to execute the 70-30% ratio of distribution, so that the bigger portion goes to the artist. All right? And so then after that, we continue maximizing on collection. There are agencies that are not probably paying. There are sectors that are not perhaps honoring their copyright engagement. So we are also engaging various arms of government that are in charge of those sectors. So a lot of dialogue happening within government, so that we have, if it's broadcasters, we have broadcasters honoring their side, all right, being able to pay for royalties, because again they use a lot of this creative content, all right. In future, we also start looking at formulas that are best formulas for collecting, and world-based formulas, that are based and the best practices in terms of collection. So there's a lot of there's a lot of work. Just the way a building may not be, I was telling Chalo earlier on, a building cannot be put together with one hammer and one nail. It will take several hammers, to take several nails to put the structure together. So as government, we are doing that. We are also asking the sector, the industry, to also support in the same process, because government cannot do this on its own. We need to work together as a team. We need to work together with the industry to be able to get to this process. And even as Charlo was talking, I was remembering that as I was giving the processes, I did not mention the engagement we also had with the industry, the engagement we had with the associations, the engagement we had with the CMOs. Even when they went on media and said they were to be given the money to distribute, I called all the leaders, the chairman and CEOs to the office. We had a discussion and explained to them the government's position in terms of the disbursement of the 100 million, why it was not going to be distributed as royalties. One thing people do not understand is royalties can only be paid to someone who has produced content, who has registered that content, and who has signed up with that CMO. All right? Majority of our musicians, and this one I will say because we have evidence to show, majority of our musicians are not in either the CMOs. All right? We find a band in the heart of Kisumu performing in a club there. They play there day in, day out. All right? Most of these live musicians are not members of CMOs.
And why is it that they're not members?
Some of them have not recorded their content. Some of them play other people's content as part of that. And that's how those venues are supposed to pay for copyright. And that's why you find venues, the entertainment spots, actually are required to take a license to be able to air that music that they play that is not their music. All right? But a lot of these artists are not registered. So if what we have gone that way, we would have lost quite a big sector of the industry, because they are not part of it. All right? And it is not just that area. There are so many other areas of artists who are probably not engaged in the CMO. So we wanted to be able to reach out to all of them, all right, in a collective sense. And also, there's issues we've been telling the CMOs to do is the cleaning up of their databases. Some of their databases are not accurate. So when you're using an inaccurate database to distribute funds, you are likely to give funds to people who are not deserving and leaving out people who are deserving, which makes that distribution ratio to come to as low as 2,500, like you had raised it. All right? So those are systematic issues that are being addressed by the various government agencies that are working. We're actually working all of us together with one goal of streamlining the creative sector. So there's a lot of work going on that area. I was trying to remember the other question.
The last question,
yes.
as